And we're not in a leap year. So we're only going to have 28 days in February. I'm like, I know there's some, is it the 28th or the 29th? There's definitely not 27 days. So stupid that February is 28 days. It's just the dumbest. That's another stupid gripe that I have with calendars. Anyway, that and daylight savings, man. We got some things to work on. What are we talking about today?
Well, we're going to talk about stimming, but before we talk about stimming, we do have some housekeeping matters.
We do. Oh, I'm Garrett.
I'm Katie.
And now we'll do housekeeping. Oh, I'll start with the housekeeping.
Your housekeeping.
I wish that we could have just seen the look that Katie gave me, like, I was like, oh yeah, that's me. We do have a small announcement that we will be welcoming a new member to the Bars Ankle High staff.
So exciting!
In August, because I am pregnant.
Yeah!
There's going to be a little baby. So we will, and we'll keep you guys updated on, like, how we're going to be working things. But we'll still have stuff coming out every week.
Yeah, our release schedule isn't going to change.
Yep.
Since it'll happen, the little baby will be here.
There's going to be so many Schitt's Creek quotes coming up.
So many. The baby will be here a little bit before our first anniversary. So we do have a plan for our first anniversary anyway of what we were going to do for that episode. And then, as usual, I take my summer vacation at the beginning of fall. So it's the same as last year where...
Yep.
But yeah, no, we do have a plan for, because we do believe in maternity leave for our team members, and paid family leave for everybody, whether you are carrying the child or just caring for it after it gets here. But yeah, so we do have a plan. Don't worry.
We'll still have things coming out.
Yeah, you'll still get your weekly episodes.
Yeah, there will still be content. We're not going to go like totally radio silent for ages. So we'll still have things coming out. You'll still have new things to listen to. I mean, really, not much should change. Like the type of content might change for a little bit, but really, for the most part, should be pretty seamless. So
yeah, and I think nothing will change with Patreon either. Mm-hmm. The biggest difference is that we'll definitely be recording way in advance.
Yes.
So we will have less commentary on current events by the time you're hearing the episode.
Or if it's a current event, it won't be a current event by the time you hear it.
Correct. Much like our first episode when we talked about Roe v. Wade getting overturned.
Oh, yes, and it came
3 months after the
in September. It was a little delayed.
Yeah. So it'll just be like old times.
Yeah. It'll come full circle that around our first anniversary we'll be doing things like we did on our first episodes.
But man, am I glad to have that out in the open now, because it was hard to talk about hormones and not mention.
It was very hard to talk about hormones and talk about like first trimester things, and I'm like very carefully. Really in all facets, like at work, it's also been very hard to like not accidentally be like, I almost poisoned my family with hand sanitizer cake because I have pregnancy brain and not because I'm just an idiot.
Tune in to Patreon on Monday for that full story, because whoa.
One of my most embarrassing moments of my whole entire life.
Yeah, I heard it live with you guys. So yeah, definitely, you have a chance. You can tune into Patreon and get it this coming Monday, the Monday
and somehow my
comes out.
Pregnancy brain managed to hold on to that story for days without accidentally telling Katie, which was very hard. Part of the reason I didn't go visit her at all this week because I was afraid.
I was wondering. I was like, gosh, she's really busy or tired.
Okay. Yes, but also she was really afraid of accidentally telling her. And that's how I have to treat myself right now. It's like, nope, you can't. Nope. No, you can't, because you accidentally will.
Like the Michael Scott, go ahead and shut up about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I have to have like
Your
a little...
whole life is a Rolodex.
Yes. And my brain works about that well right now.
Cool.
So it's a good thing Katie's covering the topic this week.
Yeah, you did some heavy lifting the past 5 episodes.
Oh my God.
So.
That's why when
and I was like, oh no, you did seasonal affective too.
I texted Katie and I was like, hey, what are we recording this week? And she was like, stemming. And I was like, you're covering that? And she was like, yeah. I was like, oh, okay. That sounds great.
Praise God.
I am a little relieved. And we will also, like, I know we had mentioned during the hormone episode, I keep wanting to say hormone monster after we almost forgot to talk about hormone monsters.
I know.
Every time it comes up, my brain's like, hormone monster.
And the fact that a character from that show popped up when I was searching for a little sticker to put on our stories for seasonal affective disorder.
Yeah.
The depression kitty popped up. So,
Perfect.
yeah, I was like, how do we not mention that for seasonal affective either?
That was so crazy. So that's going to be a continuing conversation. I do want to talk about hormones, and we like mentioned this briefly, but I just want to bring it up again. We talked about hormones with like, what do we do? Puberty, periods, pregnancy, all the P's.
And perimenopausal.
Oh,
and
all the
menopause.
P's.
Yeah.
So I want to continue that conversation. I want to continue that conversation and talk about PCOS, which we can cover some infertility stuff too, because that was something that we dealt with prior to this pregnancy. And I also would like to kind of dip into trans folks and how that affects ADHD. And something that I really don't have a ton of knowledge base on. So obviously, if anybody listening, if that's something that you are knowledgeable on, let us know.
Yeah, I was actually on Reddit in a Fundy Snark subreddit, and it came up, somebody was saying some Christian bullshit influencer was blaming his, quote, learning disabilities, which evidently includes ADHD, for his inability to recognize his postpartum wife's needs and emotional needs.
That's one of those like, nope, you're just an asshole.
Exactly. And that was the discussion. But people in the comments were like, that's not ADHD, like, which we for sure discussed in our RSD episodes, was like how we take in more information than others, and like
you're overly concerned.
Way more aware of how other people are feeling and reacting to us and whatever.
Like I can see that. I probably have a hard time. It's like out of sight, out of mind. So if I'm like not around somebody, sometimes I have a hard time like checking in, and I really have to be very conscious of it.
Yeah.
But if I'm living with somebody,
yeah.
What?
So there was a discussion on there, and I commented, and I was like, yeah, like I just got diagnosed last year, but like, no.
You're wrong.
Like, I was like, I started a whole fucking podcast about having ADHD and like what it means, and every week we're researching it. I promise.
Never
being an asshole is not a symptom of having ADHD.
Right.
That's a different problem you've got there, pal.
That's just a personality flaw.
But somebody commented and was talking about, like replied to my comment and was like, what's the name of your podcast? Like, I'm a trans man, and I'm just wondering like what that means and like how ADHD affects that. And I was like, oh, well, actually we just did a whole series on, like, we just recorded, it was like last weekend that I was on Reddit. I was like, we just recorded a whole series on hormones, and we're intending to revisit how transitioning can affect ADHD symptoms.
That's going to be another word. Like, I know there's going to be so much information I have to learn.
I specifically said, like, we didn't do it yet because we need to make sure that we're researching it properly.
And that's what happened. Like, I definitely dumped so much into the other stuff that I was like, well, I have burned myself out on this topic and need to hit the pause button and revisit this in the future, because I hyper fixated on it and threw a bunch of information out there, and then I was like, well,
especially like general experience as AFABs who also identify as women,
right?
And discussing that experience in general, it's a different type of research, because we can build off of our own experiences,
right?
And it makes it a lot easier to learn, whereas delving into a trans experience with ADHD and medications for ADHD and medications for
hormone
replacement therapies and things like that, like, that's not something that that either of us want to delve into from a place of burnout.
Totally. And I also I can honestly complain about periods all day long.
And will.
Will in the future at some point. enjoying not having one right now, to be honest. Not that I'm not paying for it with a list of other symptoms.
It's true.
Also, if you listen to Patreon, dandruff, pimples.
Oh my gosh, so...
Insomnia.
Pennies.
Almost having to call poison control.
This pregnancy has everything.
Yes, it does. It does. Did you like sleeping? Rest?
Right after we did that sleep episode, it's like when you found out you were pregnant too.
So let me also include, just for some context on that timing. So we did the sleep episode, and I was like, you know what? Just like laughing at how dumb it was. I'm going to buy the sunrise alarm clock. Like, we talked about it. I was like, I'm going to do it. And there was like a less expensive one, and then there was like a more expensive one. And I like really vacillated for like a couple of weeks. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. And then we can talk about it on the podcast. And I bought the more expensive one. I did get it on sale, but it was still expensive. And I was like, can't wait to use it. And I unpacked it. I took it out of the box, got rid of all the packaging, and literally like before I even had an opportunity to set it up and plug it in, I was like, man, I'm like not sleeping between the hours of 1 and 5 a.m. What is happening? And like a week later found out I was pregnant.
Yeah.
So it was like,
took a test. Oops.
I was like, this is...
It tracks.
Why? So very typical. I was just like, I cannot believe the amount of money I just spent on this fucking alarm clock that I can't even return because I took all the packaging and threw it away.
It'll be really helpful though when you can sleep again.
Guess what? Guess what Katie's getting as an unpackaged gift in the near future? Happy Valentine's Day. Here's an opened alarm clock.
Our annual Valentine's Day gift exchange is just therapy lamps for everybody.
Oh my God. Yeah, it was very funny that we like did that episode. And I had a friend reach out recently to me and she was like, oh, something about like a question about something sleep related. And I was like, oh, yeah, that was nice. Being into that and sleeping.
Yeah, I saw somebody who is a listener and who I enjoy exchanging raccoon memes with on our podcast Instagram. But is a friend of yours in real life, posted something about how like if you need the best tips on how to sleep great, you know, ask me or Garrett.
Yeah.
And
which is true. I can give you all kinds of sleep tips.
But like it cracked me up with like the timing of everything. The timing. And like it just,
and now it's like I can sleep really well at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, just not at 3 o'clock in the morning when I
see. That's where my nap tips come in.
Yes. So now I just have to ask
now
Katie
you're
for
fighting with Harvard.
Yes. Now I can tell Harvard to eat dick. And it is rough because like at work, it's almost like intrusive sleep where I hit a wall between like 12:30 and 1 o'clock, and I'm like, I think I'm gonna die if I don't sleep right now. So the other day I had to get up and go outside when it was super cold to wake myself up because
I've done that.
Woof. What are we talking about today, Katie? Shave me from my shelf. Oh, but that's the housekeeping. That's the housekeeping announcement that we have.
Oh, and as usual, of course, join our Patreon. Go to our website and click the merch tab if you want any cool podcast merch and rep us to all your friends and coworkers and family. That's available internationally now if you live overseas. We have a little bit less control over what types of products we can offer, but now everybody worldwide can order if you want.
So UK, you better be ordering that merch.
UK, Australia, Iceland, Germany, Canada, everywhere.
Order it!
Because we did it for you.
And we're both like, but really, please order it because Katie spent a lot of time figuring it out.
And
two people with ADHD are not cut out for researching how international sales tax works.
You know what? If you guys want to jump down a rabbit hole in which there's no escape, go ahead and try to figure out how somebody in the U.S. can register to collect and remit sales tax overseas for Europe versus the UK. Thanks a lot, Brexit. And also Australia.
We would both research it separately and then get together, and it was just that the emoji with the swirls for eyes.
It doesn't make sense.
No.
It is,
but you know what? Even state to state, it didn't make sense. So
That's true.
Internationally, surely does not make sense.
Yeah, so, yeah, this takes one thing off our plate. We don't have to file that certificate now. I mean, I guess we do, but we don't owe anything anymore.
We will save our thoughts on tax jail for off air. Also, our
accountant has told us that we can't share our
thoughts. Under advisement, we will not be sharing our thoughts.
But if and when we get 100 Patreon subscribers, every single one of our Patreon subscribers, regardless of your tier, so $2 toe rings, $5 anklets, or $10 limbo champions, will all get a special Patreon only sticker in the mail. And we'd really love to be able to continue that. So, hopefully it'll be like a periodic thing where we'll just be able to send out, special Patreon only stuff. So sign up for Patreon.
And we want to have annual billing. So also sign up so we can do annual billing.
Yeah, for sure.
Excuse me. Sorry. There'd be another side effect would be random, hiccups and farts. So sorry. Sorry about that.
That was a fart.
Just came out of my mouth.
Gross.
That was really gross.
So
It was just, it meant to be funny, and then I said it and I was like, oh, I didn't like that. So sorry.
Oh well, here we are.
Too late. It's out there. Not editing it out.
Nope. This is how the donuts are made, or whatever that phrase is.
How the cookie crumbles?
Isn't it like, oh, maybe it's
the sausage?
How the sausage is. Donuts are so much better.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I'd prefer donuts. It was mixing up donuts and sausages.
Oh, no.
What are you thinking about, Katie?
Nothing. I was thinking about mixing donuts and sausages.
I was thinking about a sausage-flavored donut, but, you know.
No. Be like one of the stick ones called a Long John.
Like an eclair, but with a hot dog in the middle. What a terrible surprise that would be.
Imagine if they... maybe corn dogs were initially billed as donuts.
A sweet treat. Yeah.
The ultimate breakfast snack.
Instead of a toaster strudel.
Part of this balanced breakfast.
Side note, it is really hard to find strawberry toaster strudels. As somebody who's been craving them lately. So if you see one, let me know. Tell me where to find them.
So, I hope you guys enjoyed that 20-minute intro. Today we're talking about stimming.
Oof.
I have a good amount of information.
I feel like my feelings are going to be hurt a lot in this episode.
I was really surprised. Mm-hmm. So, one of the reasons that I wanted to research stimming, I mean, obviously it's a symptom of ADHD and some other neurodivergent conditions, but shortly, like maybe like 5 or 6 months after I got diagnosed and medicated, I saw something that mentioned that picking at your face, like at your acne, is a form of stimming.
Oh.
And that is something that I struggled with my entire life. I would get like horrible infections. Mm-hmm. Not that I ever like sought treatment for them.
But I did it and then I just moved on.
Just like pick at these pimples that like weren't ready to go.
Oh yeah.
But like would pick at it to the point where I like gouged a hole in my face basically. Yeah. And I don't have especially pockmarked.
No, your skin looks very clear considering.
Right.
Yeah.
I can, if like in the right light, especially this time of year when I'm becoming more translucent.
Yes.
I can see some scarring, but I think I just benefited from being porcelain pale.
Yeah.
But in any event, when I learned that that was a form of stimming, I kind of got it because I would do it for like a whole hour. Like I would just stand in the bathroom and pick at my face.
Yeah.
And because I'm so fair, it was very clear that I was picking at my face.
Right.
Because I'd be fully
super
red.
Inflamed. Yes. Yeah. And then the skin looks really angry.
Right. So
then you're in that cycle of like trying to cover it up but also making it worse.
Right. And I do the thing like in class, if I had a pimple, I would like just constantly rub at it.
Yeah, same.
Even though it hurt because it's a pimple and they're painful.
Yep.
So anyway, found that out and I was like, well, shit. Anyway, so what is stimming? Self-stimulatory behavior, aka stimming, is when a person repeats specific movements or sounds as a way to self-soothe or remain engaged in a situation.
Okay.
Commonly can be referred to as fidget to focus. And neurotypical people can also engage in stimming behaviors. The stimming is found in all people.
I had no idea.
To some degree or another. But is especially found in people with developmental disabilities, autism spectrum disorder, and sensory processing disorder. I also think that sensory processing disorder could be a fun thing to research in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a condition where multisensory input is not adequately processed in order to provide appropriate responses to the demand of the environment. It's commonly found in people with ADHD, among others, and but SPD, sensory processing disorder, is not included in the DSM. And the American Academy of Pediatrics does not recommend using SPD as a standalone diagnosis. So I thought it'd be an interesting...
Yeah, like when there's a lot of loud noises at once.
Yes.
Yeah. Or a sudden loud noise. Interesting.
So the DSM does recognize stimming as a symptom of autism and is clinically recognized as something people with ADHD do as well. But just because you stim does not mean that you have autism or ADHD.
Makes sense. Because everybody stims to a degree.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. So stimming can look like, there's 4 different types of stimming. There's visual stimming, which can...
Visual stimming.
Staring off into space, drawing or doodling, spinning things like pens or rings or coins, and can kind of be, I think, incorrectly labeled as OCD because it can also manifest as lining things up in size order on your desk over and over, reorganizing shelves and folding and refolding clothing, and like if you are constantly like, if you were a kid and you reorganized your backpack before the first day of school, like almost incessantly like I did.
Just see myself
have a nervous breakdown. Yes. Yeah, this was the one where I was like, oh,
yeah.
I thought I just picked up my face till I had a disease. Yeah, evidently that's visual stimming. It can also be verbal or auditory, where you're repeating sounds, excessive giggling.
Not me just saying to Katie, like, 2 or 3 times today, do you ever just, like, think of a part of a song or a line from something and you just say it over and over to yourself 4,000 times and she just stared at me like, oh, just wait. Just wait.
Constantly clearing your throat, humming, or constantly singing, which my grandma always sang. Always. My cousins who listen to our podcast can confirm. She would, like, go to the kitchen and, like, make tea or start cooking or something, and it was always this one tune that she would just hum all the time. And I remember asking her, like, what song is it that you're always singing? And she was like, oh, I don't know. It's just a song that's in my head. And it's auditory stimming. She was doing it, like, while she was like, oh, yeah, I gotta, bake or whatever. Okay, and then the third type of stimming is tactile stimming, rubbing your fingers like you're doing right now.
Yep. I have a specific pattern that I do on my thumb. Yep, go ahead.
Rubbing your fingers, biting your nails, chewing the inside of your cheek, picking at your face.
Chewing your lips.
You're picking at your cuticles, hair twirling, cracking your knuckles, or grinding your teeth. I cracked my knuckles all the time. I'm sure.
I still do it.
In our hormone episodes, I did it a few times and I couldn't stop myself. Because then I started it and I was like, oh, I shouldn't do that. We're recording. And then I was like, well, I can't just leave the one finger cracked. Yes. I have to crack all of them.
Now I have to finish it. Hair twirling. I do that at work. Yeah. Sometimes, like, if I'm thinking a lot, I leave and I look like...
Shirley Temple.
Yes. Because I've just, like, twisted and twisted and twisted and twisted.
Yeah, I do it.
Or and sometimes I have to put my hair back to stop myself from doing it.
Yes. Yep. I hair twirl a lot. I also, especially if I'm really stressed, my thumb on my right hand, which is my dominant hand, that cuticle gets capital R wrecked. Because I just pick at the corner of my thumb cuticle.
That's one of my
constantly.
anxiety indicators. If my anxiety is really high, I have given myself hangnails on almost every finger.
Yeah, which is, I mean, using cuticle oil has really helped.
Mm-hmm.
I also had a dream that you handed me a vial of cuticle oil. Like you walked over to my desk and just like handed it to me.
Here you go, and then left.
Yeah, like it was and it was like half used, and I was like,
no, thank you.
Like,
no,
I didn't
thank you.
ask you. I was like, hey, I'm out. Do you have any? No, that's not what happened. Anyway,
just came over and gave it to you.
And then the fourth type of stimming is balance based, so spinning, rocking, or swinging. So yeah,
I don't think I do that.
I don't think so. I don't think I do that either. Really, I can catch myself kind of, but it's like right now, my foot is bouncing.
Yeah, like I'll sway sometimes, like while I'm standing. But I don't think I do that as much.
No, me neither. So some specific examples are like writing the same thing over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
I do this all the time. I'll write my name over and over to fill like an entire page. Constantly. I do it all the time, and I just kind of get stuck in this loop of doing it. My name has not changed since birth. I have no different names.
Yeah.
Nothing about my name has changed, and I just write it in cursive over and over and over again. And yeah, it's a doodle that I'll do during like meetings and stuff, which also makes me look like a wild narcissist. I'm just writing my own name over and over.
I do doodle, but I do circles, and I do them in a triangle shape, and then I like build out from that.
I just do circles, almost like a string of pearls.
Yeah.
That's like weaving all over my paper.
Have you ever done like one of those heart chains? Because I'll do that too.
Yeah, but I'm not as good at it. It makes me mad when I don't do it perfectly straight.
Yeah, that's reasonable. And then it's a whole different stem.
Or I'll do like an asterisk.
Yeah.
And I'll do that over and over. My textbook in high school for Spanish, back when you had just the paper covers for your textbook book covers, I feel like that's such a dated thing to say.
Yeah, when you used to have to find the paper grocery bags to be able to do the book cover. Yeah.
Like the hot girls had the Abercrombie bags.
Yeah, no, I was like, Hannaford.
But, yeah, so my entire Spanish textbook, front and back, was covered in stars.
I like doing the crosshatch where you do like the 3 lines in one direction and 3 lines in the other direction. Like it kills me that all of those are horizontal except that one that's vertical, and I stare at it all the time.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
and that it's overlapping the painting. I can't tell you how much of this episode or how much of the time we've been recording today I've been looking at that and thinking about fixing it. Anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead. Stimming.
Fidgeting, kind of, to me, it was like bringing me back to our excessive activity episode. Yep. You can get more pronounced in your physical stimming, like tactile or balance-based, even when you have to sit still for long periods of time, or you're required to engage in a task that you don't find interesting.
I do find myself sometimes, and I haven't Googled it. I don't know if it's like actually an ADHD thing, but like when I have to, I notice a lot like when I am trying to go to sleep, I get like itchy. And I feel like it's because, no, I'm just thinking about it and making me itchy. It's because I'm supposed to be still. That I then am like, oh, this itches, and no, I have an itch here, and this itches, and even if I'm like probably not actually itchy, I feel like I'm itchy.
That happens to me at work.
Yeah. Yes, sometimes that too. Yep.
So yeah, as I said before, it's a self-soothing behavior. So you can find yourself stimming if you're trying to relieve stress or distract from a current situation or just calm the overwhelm. Mm-hmm. So it can be triggered by either sensory overload or being understimulated, like when you feel so bored and you get the same song on repeat in your head and you sing it all day.
Is that what it says?
It's literally in my notes.
It does not fucking say it. It won't even be the same song. It's literally like a 5-second clip from a song that I will like over and over and over and over. And then I'll think it's out. And then I'll find myself singing it again. I'm like, God damn it. It's not even like the whole song is stuck in my head. It's just this part that I'm like, I'm sorry, go ahead. I can't believe it says that in your notes.
ADHD stimming in particular can be a simple way that we just try to improve our focus and ease ourselves into an unfamiliar or unpleasant environment, or alleviate boredom. I for sure use it to increase my focus a lot of times. Like I found myself yesterday at work, picking at my cuticle while I was like reviewing documents so that I could eviscerate my opposing counsel.
I think I do it the most when I'm anxious or high strung or feeling overwhelmed. That's when I'm stimming the most. I think it's like mine's more of like a nervous energy. Like I'll touch my face a lot. I'll clear my throat. I'll take sips of water, like all that stuff. Picking.
I for sure do it to help me focus. Also when somebody's talking to me.
Yes.
I find myself doing that a lot at work. That I'll like use one of my calm strips, like to just have it on hand, and just something again to like kind of quiet the rest of my mind so that it's like, okay, I have this like feeling that's distracting the noisy part of my brain so that the quiet part of my brain can listen to what this person is saying to me.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Oh, I also fold things.
Yeah,
I'll like take a piece of paper and like fold it up and fold it up and fold it up and fold it up, unfold it and
You've
fold
done
it.
that with your cloth napkins when we were sitting in your kitchen before.
Yes.
You do that a lot.
Fold things and unfold them. I also like take my index finger and and I've done it for like years. I rub along my thumb with my nail and I go like this.
Okay.
Like vertical zigzags, and then I do horizontal zigzags, and then I go around the outside, and then I start over, and it's vertical and horizontal and around the outside. And that's just like one of my like fidgety. I know my spouse also like rubs his.
I've seen your spouse do
Yes.
the same finger thing that you do. Actually,
Yes, but
he did it
circular.
when your dog took a shit behind PK.
My dog is ancient. His nickname is actually Chaotic King. And we were sitting and having a nice meal outside on the deck, and my fucking psycho.
Like we immediately sat down. Like we were like, okay, food's ready. Let's all sit down.
Let's all
PK
sit and eat.
sat down.
And my dog went over and took a dump under his chair. Like, because he's just an absolute psycho. He is an absolute psycho. And if you've met my dog, you can confirm he's an absolute. I love him. But he is the most chaotic thing in this house.
Yeah. And it was also I'm sure Patrick felt kind of weird about it because it was like a situation, like the chair he was in plus where your dog did that. He couldn't get up to help.
He couldn't move. And I literally said to him, I'm like, you just need to sit still.
Right. It was like that thing, like if something was like on your back and you need somebody to help you get it off.
Get it.
But it wasn't on him, so he felt like obligated to help clean because like it's.
And I knew he would, and I'm like, nope, you just can't move.
If he had unscooted his chair out from under the table, he would have stepped in it or dragged the chair leg through it. So it just would have been terrible.
Yeah, my dog somehow found the worst possible place ever to take a dump and was like, that's it. He literally like rubbed his little paws together. He was like, I found the perfect spot and the perfect person.
But yeah, when that happened, your spouse like stopped for a minute and was doing that with his fingers.
Yep, thinking.
And I was like, what's wrong? And you said, just stimming.
Yep, that's what he does. That's his stem. Yeah, we both, and it's funny because we definitely both, he also paces when he's on the phone and it drives me
Oh, PK does that.
insane.
And I can hear it when we're on the phone together.
Yes.
Because he'll like, his apartment is extremely long.
Mm-hmm.
And like I can hear him like almost getting out of breath because he's just going.
His downstairs neighbor is listening to this going, yeah, I know. Yeah, he does. Like if he's working in any capacity while he's home, he's pacing.
Yeah.
And it drives me crazy.
Meanwhile, I'm on the phone with PK, like slouched on my couch with my phone on speaker, like on my boobs, just like propped up. And then Sophie's like, excuse me, I can just fit in between here and have this conversation, be a part of it.
Reggie's like, hold on, I'm going to take a dump under where you're sitting. Give me just a second. Let me work one up. I still can't believe he did that. We mentioned that not that long ago, and I was like, I still can't believe he did that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a good one.
He's so bad.
So yeah, as far as like unfamiliar or unpleasant situations, I've for sure caught myself like at like a networking mixer,
Mm-hmm.
like I'll make sure that I have something in my hands.
Oh, yeah, if I don't know what to do with my hands.
Yeah.
You can see it in some of my wedding pictures. I didn't know what to do with my hands, so...
You mean your excellent wedding photos?
My really terrible wedding pictures. One of our Patreons actually has this joke that I had raptor hands in a lot of my pictures because I was just holding them up because I didn't know what to do with them. I'm just standing there like I have nothing to hold in my hands. I have nothing to do with my hands, so what do I think Elise Myers had a thing about that. Like, what do I do with my hands? And 100%.
Yeah.
If I don't have
fair.
pockets, or something to hold.
Oh, yeah. If I get married, I should make sure my dress has pockets.
You should, because otherwise you're going to have raptor hands like me. I'm going to have to yell to you, raptor hands. You're doing
Maybe
it.
I'll just get married in one of those inflatable T-Rex costumes.
Oh, there you go. Then it works. Yeah. That's
Perfect.
definitely the way to do it.
Yeah.
Best choice.
Surely I won't regret it.
No. Your mom definitely already has one to use, so it's
Yeah,
perfect.
she does. That's true.
Yeah.
She can officiate.
I love it.
Also, tune into Patreon for our hot takes on Jurassic Park.
Oh my God.
Um,
Katie's hot takes on Jurassic Park, because I won't go near it.
But yeah, so like I said, I mean, I do use my calm strips like all the time. Having one on my phone is like 10 out of 10. Like, recommend it for sure. So, you know.
I might put another one on my phone. The one I had like didn't fit, and then I was fidgeting with the part that it didn't fit. So.
I took the snowflake one and I actually like cut it in half so that it fit, and it's perfect because it's right where my finger sits when I'm holding my phone.
Oh yeah, I do. I want to put one on my pop socket that I have.
Yeah,
because I think I'll use that a lot. I have one on my keyboard, and it's right like where my hand sets.
Mm-hmm.
So I do find myself a lot like thumbing my strip.
Yum. Anyway, promo code Limbo20 if you want to join Garrett on that.
If you want to thumb strips with me. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Cut to our audio where we tested the audio for this episode.
Oh yeah, that's right. We were making jokes.
No one will ever hear, but it was graphic.
Also very funny, but graphic.
But okay, so sometimes stimming can be considered destructive when it disrupts the people around you,
or when you're picking your skin.
Yeah, or when it causes harm to yourself or others, like if you're spinning or hand flapping in a way that could hit somebody else, or picking at your nails and cuticles until they bleed.
Yeah, or distracting other people.
Destructive. Yeah, exactly.
So like some people have that trichotillomania, like where they pluck hair. Like, is that also considered a stim?
Yep.
Oof, that's a rough one.
Yeah. I think that might cross into more than stimming because it has a different name for it.
Right.
Where it's so.
I wonder if it can like start as a stim and then progress to.
I think so.
Yeah.
And we could research that as well as kind of like a little offshoot thing. Because one of the recommended treatments for stimming or ADHD in general, as usual, I mean, kind of a broken record at this point, but is CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, where you can identify your triggers and then figure out what your natural response is to it and whether or not that natural response is appropriate, or if you need to learn a different way to manage your triggers or manage your environment so that you aren't triggered as frequently or
find a way to like channel it like a calm strip, like finding like a fidget thing or
something that works
item
for you
to use instead.
Right. And like a couple years ago, fidget spinners were huge. Now there's like those pop board things. Have you seen these?
No.
It looks like it's like silicone. It's like a silicone block, and it almost looks like the top of a Lego. Like it has little like nubbins on it, and you just like pop it down and back up.
Oh boy.
There's one in my therapist's office back when I was going in person.
I get so many targeted ads for fidget items. It's ridiculous.
I get a ton of ads right now for Specs magnetic thingies.
I get those, and there's one where it's like a silicone magnetic thing that you can like stick together in different.
That's also by Specs.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I got that ad this morning. Actually.
I was gonna order one of those. So I'm like, I can see myself really playing with that a lot.
So this is like my last. It's kind of a decent size section, but Another way that people can stim is by eating. So I wanted to delve into that. We did touch on this a little bit in episode 14 with how you can use food to stim. Episode 14 is our VeggieTales Kill Bill episode. It was about ADHD and food. And so just a brief trigger warning if you're uncomfortable with discussing eating habits, totally fair. You can fast forward like, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes, no hard feelings. We'll have our editor just insert like a bar or two of our music when that section's done, so you can start listening again.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And so here we go.
Drum roll, please.
So yeah, as we know, with ADHD, your brain's dopamine system is just like wrecked.
Yeah.
Because our internal regulation system is lacking in satisfaction, we look to external sources for stimulation, including food. Food does not just offer stimulation, though, by way of taste or carb content to boost that dopamine. It can also satisfy your sense of smell, sight, and touch, right,
yes,
via texture. So if you find yourself reaching for something sweet, sour, crunchy when you're super bored.
Yes, crunchy.
Right.
Now I want chips.
You just want all food.
I do. All the food. Chips, toaster strudels, gummy worms.
Shake me from my shelf.
Bagels, pizza. Yeah, now I'm really hungry, so I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It is lunchtime, so yeah.
Chips, 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 chips.
So some researchers have posited that ADHDers are more sensitive to subtle shifts in brain chemistry and to the subtle shifts in brain chemistry that take place when all humans eat food. So as a result, when we eat food, and as we discussed in our food episode just briefly, like human brains are designed to crave super fatty foods and really carb-rich foods because
sugary foods.
Right, your brain needs sugars and fats to function properly and to assist those synapses in your brain, but also like evolutionarily speaking, high fat foods and high carb foods, we're going to crave those because our body, like, we're still animals at the end of the day.
Right.
And as a hunter-gatherer, when you're constantly on the run, you need something that's high in fat and high in carbs
to sustain you.
Right.
Right.
So naturally all humans will crave those things, but as ADHDers, we're more sensitive to the dopamine reaction that our brain produces when we eat those things.
And, I mean, that was also at a time when, you think evolutionarily, you needed those things, but also the process to getting those things was not grocery shopping. It was like seeking them out.
Yes, it was few and far between.
Prepping them, right. And they had to be something that was, efficient. And obviously, like, you're not going to be getting something that has high fructose corn syrup in it when you're cave
right
dweller.
Like you're maybe getting honey.
Right. So yeah, it definitely, like, it's the same drive, but the inputs are different, and like the needs are different, but your body is still
right
lizard brain. So
yes. And so these researchers have suggested that ADHD brains almost get like a better high, so to speak, from eating these foods because we're already deficient in dopamine and it's triggering that response. Then our brain is going to ask us for more of those foods because we're already operating at a deficit of dopamine and norepinephrine.
That makes sense.
Right?
Oh, yeah, and we did touch on that, like, when we talked about how the ADHD brain does crave those things anyway.
Correct.
And then when you take things into consideration, like seasonal affective disorder or depression,
right,
it just feeds that same
And
cycle.
Like we talked about in our burnout episode, like, we can get burnt out so much more quickly because we're already trying to keep up with neurotypical people.
We're on the hamster wheel.
Right.
Like faster hamster wheel.
Exactly. Like they're having a way easier time of it than we are in the first place. So then, we're just constantly playing catch up. And then we end up in this situation where we're prone to overeating.
Right.
Or overeating the wrong things because of this biological mechanism that we have no control over.
I heard that my therapist just mentioned that about anxiety too. Like, part of the reason people struggle so much with anxiety now is it developed as a evolutionary thing with your brain to protect you from all these dangerous situations. And now that life is not that way anymore, that your brain still creates it and like needs a place to put it basically and winds up internalizing it. And that's why people struggle with anxiety. And I was like, that makes perfect sense to me.
I've heard that over why like everybody, like you naturally will freak out if a bug crawls on you.
Yep.
And it's evolutionarily.
Yes.
You could not trust the bugs.
Same thing with being like afraid of the dark and like wanting your mom.
Yeah.
Those are also things that like are evolutionary to survive. That you are afraid of the dark because there could be a lion in the dark that's going to eat you.
Yeah, and you want your family, like your
to protect you,
your clan, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's really interesting. Like when you also, again, how many times we talked about destigmatizing these things. She mentioned anxiety in that context, and I was like, huh, I just have a really safe brain.
I'm so safe.
I'm so safe that I torment myself. Please tune into Patreon and hear that episode because
so good.
I almost killed everybody. So anyway. But no, that makes perfect sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So, researchers have found that many people with binge eating disorder also have ADHD. 20 out of 27 studies on ADHD and eating disorders found a connection with binge eating disorders.
Wow. I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A 2015 study found that impulsivity regulation issues is the strongest predictor of binge eating disorder with people with ADHD.
Yeah, I believe that. That's something I've definitely had issues with in the past.
Say, I currently have issues.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm not convinced that I don't currently have an issue with that because I'm still thinking about chips, but yeah, it's tough. That's a tough, and it's a really hard one to break too.
Yeah, well, and so I'm going to discuss that
too.
So
Sure,
don't worry.
Go for it.
So this all came from one article on healthline.com, which of course is in our show notes. And the article is extremely well cited. There's links to all the studies that they're referencing.
They're really good about citing stuff.
Yeah.
Their articles are good.
So that study, which like grain of salt on this one because it discusses children, but this article reported that 40 to 50% of children with ADHD have impaired response inhibition. So when it comes to eating, those children can find it difficult to pause, assess their hunger signals and fullness cues, and stop eating, which then can be exacerbated with ADHDers' generalized decreased awareness of body cues, as we've discussed with
and poor focus.
Yeah, we discussed episode 13, our hyperfixation episode, and how Garrett Googled ADHD and pooping pants.
And then almost encountered it herself.
And then almost did that at your own home, which...
While in a bathroom. It's unimportant. The details don't matter.
As the person who does the laundry, I'm telling you, stop it. It's not important what happened. Mind your business. Who cares if I had to buy all new underwear?
Because I was wearing all of them at the same time. Oh my god. That's good. That's funny. I forgot.
So we can, just as we can ignore our bodies like need to drink something and forget to notice how thirsty we are.
Or that we have to poop.
Or that we have to go to the bathroom or whatever, we can also ignore whether we're hungry, how full we are, or if we're like satisfied even.
Yeah.
With how much you've eaten. You don't have to eat to the point of fullness. You can eat to the point of satisfied.
Right. Or, am I full? Am I bored? Am I just wanting something crunchy?
Am I just trying to stim? Because, So, this article also noted, so I'm going to note it as well, everyone in the whole world who has access to food will eat beyond their level of comfort at some point. You'll overeat. Yeah. Everybody will overeat at some point in time. Just because you occasionally overindulge does not mean that you have binge eating disorder necessarily.
Correct.
There's very specific criteria. I didn't write them down. As always, we are not doctors, medical doctors here. We are not diagnosticians. If you are concerned about your eating habits, check in with your primary care provider or make an appointment with a registered dietitian, not an Instagram health coach by
Correct. Or I'm putting in quotes, Instagram nutritionist.
Yeah, registered, at least in the U.S., I don't know about everywhere else, but in the U.S., registered dietitian, somebody who's licensed and has to maintain that license through continuing ed classes, that's what you're going to look for.
Has to pass boards, like there's a
not somebody who's
process.
like sharing the next Kardashian trend on TikTok,
right?
Or whatever.
Anybody that's advertising flat tummy tea is not the person to go to.
Seriously. So impacts of eating for stimulation. Physically, you can feel discomfort if you overeat, nausea, gas, bloating, stomach pains, or maybe you're just pregnant. I don't know.
And you just can't stop burping and farting. That could also happen. Or keep overeating bagels. That can also happen. But anyway,
you also can encounter an increased risk of chronic diseases like diabetes, high blood pressure, or high cholesterol, unintentional weight gain, and fluctuations in energy level.
That crash after you eat something like sugary or...
For sure.
Or just I know my normal diet is not the same as my pregnancy diet. And when I say diet, I just mean what I'm eating. I don't, there's no plan.
Right. Yeah. Diet in the clinical sense of the word. Yeah.
Yes. I tend to avoid foods that make me feel like bloated and uncomfortable, or like, you eat something greasy and you just feel like you feel greasy for a couple days. You just don't feel good. I tend to avoid foods like that in regular times.
Usually.
Now I'm seeking them like a heat-seeking missile. Give me meat-free burgers. Give me fries. Give me bagels. Mostly bagels. I just really want bagels all the time. Gummy worms. Yeah.
And the mental health effects of eating for stimulation can be guilt and shame, a higher risk of restriction, which then creates an unhealthy cycle of eating, depression and or anxiety, and eating in isolation to avoid those guilt and shame feelings, and lifestyle disruptions. Like if you're driving 10 miles out of your way to get a specific type of ice cream, that can disrupt like the rest of your life or other responsibilities you might have.
Yeah. And that mental health, it then turns into it's cyclical, and it just turns into like this feedback loop, and it's very hard to get out of, like when you're in that loop.
For sure. And I will say, what really has repaired my personal relationship with food and my body has been working with a registered dietitian. For me, working with a registered dietitian has been really life-changing in how I view my body and my food and what I choose to eat and how I'm eating and fueling my body each day. But I am aware that statement comes from a massive place of privilege. Yeah. We have exceptional health insurance where we work. It's the best that I've ever had from an employer. Yep. So I understand that, like, not everybody that is listening can get in with a registered dietitian right away. Not everybody's health insurance covers a registered dietitian. I get it. But it's worth looking into and fighting with your insurance company for.
Or even on like a real basic level, following dietitians that are discussing things like intuitive eating and having a good relationship with food and not restricting and not counting calories and macros.
And that was one of the biggest things that I had to learn when from my dietitian. Actually, I have a list here, so I'll just go through it. Things I learned include, and I've been seeing her now as we're recording for about 1.5 years. And I learned to eat when I'm hungry because after 20-ish years, 15 years of cyclical dieting and following WW and Jenny Craig.
And when you add ADHD into that mix.
Correct. It was so easy for me to say, I'm not going to eat. It's not a mealtime, or I don't need to eat right now. I'll just wait because I know I'm going out to dinner tonight, so I just won't eat. So learning to honor my hunger and just when I'm feeling hungry, just eat. Just have your meal. Have a whole meal. Don't just snack. If I'm hungry for lunch at 10 a.m., then eat my lunch. And what that tells me is that my breakfast wasn't big enough. My breakfast didn't fuel me enough to get me to lunch. Okay, cool.
Or I ate dinner early last night, or I had a light dinner because I wasn't really hungry at dinner time. Right. But now in the morning I'm hungrier because I didn't have a lot to eat last night.
So then eat until you're full. Right. Which was the other thing, you know, when you eat until you're full, and then stop eating, even if there's bites left on your plate. Like if you're not as hungry as you thought you were going to be. I also learned how to balance my plate properly without regard to specific calorie counts or macro counts.
It's so hard to undo.
Yeah, and like good or bad foods. That's not the point. The point is very basic. And, you know, like, I'll shit on them again, but, you know, not following whatever imaginary metric the Kardashians have shilled to us this week.
Right, or whatever's like trendy right now.
Exactly.
Or this time of year, whatever's coming out because it's post-holidays.
Right. So, and I've also learned, the biggest thing I've learned is, you know, to respect my body when it's telling me I'm hungry, and to respect my cravings. And to implement in my daily life how to enjoy food again without guilt, because I don't restrict my diet. If I want pizza, I have pizza. I have a salad with it, but I have the pizza, and I know that I can have pizza again. I could have pizza tomorrow too.
Yes.
It's not about never having that food again, and it's not about having the pizza and saying, "Oh, I'm such a piece of shit because I ate pizza.
I'm such a piece of shit."
I'm
sorry.
Those dad jokes are coming in hot for you.
Sleep deprived. I'm sorry. My brain doesn't work.
PK's gonna love that one.
He is gonna love it. Yeah, I think that, like, I had a very hard time getting out of, and I still find myself doing it. I'm trying to think how long ago that calorie episode came out for maintenance phase. More than 6 months.
Probably about a year.
Yeah,
I would think.
And once that came out, and
it was like November of 2021.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I realized, like, really long term, because I'd been calorie restricting for like almost 10 years, the toll that takes on your metabolism. And I've really tried to, like, adjust. And I can't tell you how many times people have been like, oh, you know, if they're like, oh, you look great, blah, 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 about counting calories. I'm like, I don't track anything. I don't count anything. Like,
my dietitian, she's like, target, like, maybe like 500 calories per meal, but she's like, don't ever count your calories.
Find myself in my head, I'm like, all right, so this is about this much, and this is about this much, which puts me okay, and then later, and then I'm like, I have to, like, stop myself, because I'm also like, why am I using my precious brain power on this shitty math? But it's really taken a very long time to undo this pattern of thinking, like, foods are categorized by good and bad, and if I have this, I then can't have it again for X number of months. And I found myself recently, I was like, man, you know, I really want cinnamon rolls. So you know what I did? I just made a batch of cinnamon rolls and had them. And that was it. And it wasn't like a thing where I was beating myself up and mad at myself. And I was like, man, that was delicious. And that was it, period.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it takes I have in here, like, it took me over a year to learn those simple things.
Yes.
Of, I can eat this food again.
Yes.
This isn't the last time I'm going to eat this food. I can just enjoy it. And it has made it so much better when I do have those nice foods, because I'm there in the moment and I'm enjoying my food, and I'm not, you know, going to bed being like, you're disgusting. I'm not getting on the scale every morning and letting that number, first of all, I'm hardly ever getting on the scale.
Same.
But I'm not getting on it, and I was, you know, when I was at my lowest, I got on the scale every fucking morning.
Me too, yeah.
And that determined,
micromanaged to a half a pound.
Yes.
You know, if I'm up 2 ounces,
even if I knew, like, oh, well, I had Chipotle this week, and that always makes me, like, go up, so to speak, which is, like, realistically, if my scale says that I'm up 2 pounds in a 24-hour period, I would have had to eat an additional 7,000 calories, ridiculous. Which is, like, I don't know, pretty fucking impossible. Yeah. Like, it's real hard. I would have had to eat more, like, too much like, I would have thrown up if I had
Right.
eaten that much in a single day. So, like, it's the kind of thing where, like, for me, working with a dietitian, to just say those things, to be like,
Mm-hmm.
that's inaccurate. Like, you don't have to trust what the scale is saying in that sense, because,
Yep.
like, the reality of it is that you would have to eat 3,500 calories in addition to what you naturally burn each day
Right.
to gain that actual weight
Right.
in a day. So, no. Are you eating 3,500 calories in a day? Probably not.
Right.
Very few people ever do.
Right.
Like Michael Phelps does that.
Right. Or like The Rock when he's eating
Yeah.
400 cans of tuna a day. But yeah, it's like I'm finding myself now trying not to be paranoid about weight and numbers. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, like I'm supposed to be gaining weight right now. My weight is supposed to be going up. And they weighed me at the doctor's office and I was up like 7 pounds or something. And I was like, okay, well, like all things considered, I have clothes on. I'm normally not weighing myself with clothes on. I've had a ton of water this morning because I knew I had to have,
Right.
you know,
For the ultrasound.
right. So it was like, I'm taking those things into consideration. I'm like, this is not the end of the world. Like, it's really not that big a deal.
And it's over the holidays.
It's over the holidays. Like, and I know, I mean, I went wild during the holidays. My mom was like, do you want this, or this dessert? And I was like, I mean, one of each. Thank you.
Yeah. Those
and
all sound great. Thank you.
Yeah, and I didn't feel great after, physically, but I've gotten back into like more of my normal eating habits. And I really had to like walk myself back because I could feel myself falling into that same. And I'm like, no, you're supposed to be gaining weight right now. And it was not a point of conversation with the doctor. It was, and I told her, I was like, you know, I've had in the past where like providers kind of blame certain things on me. I was like, despite having a healthy lifestyle and doing all the things that I can do to make myself healthy, which, you know, I put like in quotes, healthy, but I was like, there's certain things that are just genetic for me that I can't change. And she completely agreed with me. And I was like, I wanted to cry. I'm like, nobody ever says that to me. Like, if anything, like I'm
glad that you had a good relationship,
Yeah.
good experience with her.
Yeah, because it's, you know, how many times, especially I feel like women especially, go in and kind of
Totally.
get blamed. Like, I have high blood pressure and it's genetic and I've had it for years and I've been on medication for years. It doesn't matter what my weight is. It doesn't matter what I'm eating, what I'm doing, how much I'm exercising. It does not change.
Yeah.
So I've tried to explain that to doctors in the past, and I kind of get like yeah, okay, like I'm probably lying. I'm like, listen,
Right.
if all I had to do was, you know, work out more, like, and not be on multiple medications and have everybody up my beehole about this all the time, yeah, I would love to.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very refreshing to have somebody like in a doctor's appointment not make that the whole focus, not kind of give me the eye over whatever metrics they took, and it was very refreshing.
Good.
Not that that's like fully relevant to what we're covering, but
Well, I mean, it kind of is, because it's the thing of, you know, again, I'm obese and I haven't had an encounter with a provider where they're like, ma'am, you need to
yeah,
fix your shit. But I've also been bizarrely lucky in that I'm not pre-diabetic. I don't have high cholesterol. I don't have high blood pressure. I am otherwise extremely healthy. Like I have low vitamin D levels.
but that's like a perfect example of like there's more to health. Health is not a two-dimensional thing.
Right.
There's more to it than, I mean, like every time I get blood work done, my cholesterol is high and my when I go, my blood pressure is usually trending high despite being medicated. I mean, I've done, you know, cut out dairy. I've done like all of the things
I don't know
if
you eat more fiber, you'll just turn into a tree.
I for sure will be a poop.
You'll be Groot.
Like, yeah, I'll be a bean. I'll just be a chickpea. And you know, I was doing research on polycystic ovarian, and that can give you high blood pressure and high cholesterol. And I've got a family history of high blood high blood pressure and high cholesterol. So it is the most exasperating thing to go in there and be like, no, I'm doing all the things. Well, have you tried walking?
Yeah.
And then I want to implode. I've tried walking 6 miles and it's not fixing it. Like, if that's all it took was things that I could control, I've controlled the controllables and it doesn't matter. So it's like you can look at two people with completely different sets of circumstances And it's just like, it's a multi-dimensional thing.
Yeah.
It is totally not, weight is not the be all and end all of health. And that's what is like so exasperating about at least my medical experience in the past with different providers.
Right. And
an attitude that I'm lying.
As we close out the discussion on food, I will say that I started going to a dietitian because I wanted a better relationship with my body and with food.
Which is the way to approach it.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I would like to be a little bit smaller and have a little bit lower number on the scale just for long-term health purposes. But that is, if that is a consequence of having a healthy relationship with food and with my body, cool. If this is the weight that I'm going to be for the next 10 years or whatever until I hit my next hormonal displacement era.
See previous episodes.
Where I scream. Then so be it.
Yeah.
You know, I can find clothing that fits me. I'm not, housebound.
Right. No, like I know what my most comfortable weight is. And I know that's when I mentally feel the best about myself. I physically feel the best. Like I know that there's a range for me where I feel good. And to me, that's what I shoot for. And
I think I could comfortably and safely lose 100 pounds, honestly, and be at that range that I can maintain naturally without having to think about it. But I was once 150 pounds lighter than I am now, and it was getting dangerous.
Oh, for sure. Like it gets scary.
Yeah.
And you're so in it. It's like depression. You're so in it.
Yes.
You can't see it.
And yeah. So it got, I think, and that was also 6 years ago now. But at that time, I think I was using exercise as a stim.
For sure. And I've done it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that
calorie restriction too.
Right, because I wasn't able to stim with food and didn't know that anything else was stimming. But I was stimming through exercise. So I was, like murdering myself at the gym.
Yep.
And at home and on my lunch breaks and doing all these really intense exercises. And I think it was a sensory stimulation for me because it was like
hit of dopamine.
Yeah, it was a massive hit of dopamine, but I was like it was almost painful in the sense that like I was running really long distances, I was sweating a lot, I was lifting heavy weights, my muscles were sore, so then I could it was for me, it turned into that thing of like if my muscles aren't sore, then it's not a good workout. But so I was like craving the sore muscle feeling, but I think the sore muscle feeling was a tactile stim.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And the dopamine I feel like that you also get when you're weighing yourself and it's trending down.
Oh, absolutely.
And adding it to a tracker and seeing the trend.
Getting the star for each 5 pounds or whatever it was.
You get the little alert from MyFitnessPal. You're down like X number of pounds. Like it definitely, I think back on it now, and that was unregulated ADHD and not being really aware of what was going on. And woof, yeah, like it, to me, I look at it, I'm like, it's very clear. I'm like, oh, I can totally see what I was doing now.
Yeah. At
the time, it was like it's almost like a drug. Like it's like addictive.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So, music. So for controlling stimming though, there's, like you said, it is like a drug when you're stimming repetitively and potentially getting into a destructive place with stimming. So medication, of course, that's your choice if you choose to medicate either with an ADHD medication or an anxiety medication. Of course, therapy. We're big proponents of it always. And changing your environment to eliminate or reduce triggers, lower stress, and provide a calming outlet is really helpful. They recommend, like, we've talked about, like, having, like, your little sleep sanctuary or finding something that you really love to do, like you garden. I really love going for a walk and listening to a podcast. And that helps me zone out.
Usually one of my things, especially like on a Saturday, I would get up early and do like, 4 or 5 miles and come back and feel like I've superhero.
Yeah. I don't even go that far. I just, I mean, I would say I go at like a medium pace. I mean, I do like maybe like a 20-minute mile. Like it's not particularly fast, but it is like so calming. And yeah, then I can come back into my apartment and clean everything and do the chores that I need to do.
And you're not wiped.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's very helpful for me. And awareness and support, like identifying, by identifying those triggers and working with a therapist, you can help and find out a way that you can let your friends and family know that these are your triggers and what to do to support you. Like if you get really overwhelmed when things are really noisy, just let your family know that like, hey, if I take a break during the holiday party and just go into the coat room, or like the bedroom that everybody throws their jackets onto for 10 minutes.
When I lock myself in the closet.
Right. Like I'm not mad at you. I'm not going anywhere. I just need to like reset.
Yes.
And like that's totally fine. But having those conversations with people and just letting them know that like it's not you, it's me.
Right. I've also read too, like doing like almost like a neurological reset with like a drastic temperature change. So like stepping outside, they said like for little kids, like if a little kid's having a really bad day or a meltdown, sitting in the tub with a popsicle or like taking a cool shower, like all of those things can kind of help reset your nervous system.
Oh, okay.
So that you can kind of regroup.
I do love in the summer a cool shower or in the winter a really hot shower and then getting into bed for that nap.
God, just have clean sheets. I wish
That
I
is
could.
the nap.
That's like, you know, when I was saying I wish I could bottle that warm sunshine feeling and take it like a pill. I also feel that way about that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a good feeling. Oh, so good.
It's the best feeling. Or a warm cookie. All of those things. Just hit me.
That's all I got on stimming.
That was great. I mean, I was attacked multiple times, but it was
me too. Don't worry.
It was a good episode.
I was very surprised with the visual one with like stacking stuff. I do that constantly. Oh my God. I will reorganize the same drawer for no reason. And evidently it's a stim.
I remember actually being on a date one time and the guy that we had gone on like 2 or 3 dates and he noticed that I was straightening things out on the table like while we were talking. And you know, I see like my dad does the same thing, like lining things up, straightening things out. And he intentionally like distracted me at one point and turned something to see if I would notice. And literally as soon as I turned around, I like fixed it. And he pointed that out to me and it was something I didn't even like realize that I was doing. So, you know, rude.
Hurtful.
But yeah, hurtful and unnecessary. I'm going to realize this much later in life and I'll be mad about it.
It was like me picking at my face like, oh, motherfucker.
And I've gone through phases where I've done the same thing.
Oh my God. Incessantly. I mean, I had a little scab recently because I caught myself doing it. Because there's a thing, you know, it's like one of those pimples that like really hurts. And so you just kind of like.
The invisible ones?
Yeah.
I get those right before my period. Ugh. I get like a huge one that's just like under the skin and just hurts.
Yes. And so then because it hurts, I'm like fucking with it.
Yeah.
And then because I'm fucking with it, it looks inflamed.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just wreck my face.
I'll just get to the bottom of this problem. Yeah, no, it's there's a lot of like little things that I do that I'm like,
yeah,
I see now.
So it's not all ADHD necessarily.
No, but I know my spouse, the foot bouncing. We'll be laying in bed and the whole bed's like shaking.
My brother does that.
I'm like, are you bouncing your foot right now? No. Okay, cool.
Yeah, my brother did that at we were having dinner somewhere, like a holiday or something, and I was like, could you stop?
Yeah, everything is shaking.
Like, and that's just it. Like, if the table wasn't shaking, I wouldn't care.
Right.
But
I only care if I can feel it.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. No, and then it's
the kind of thing though, like when people click their pen, and like when I'm clicking my pen, I don't hear it.
That's fine.
But if somebody else is clicking their pen, it could go either way. Either I also don't hear it because it's synced up with whatever the fuck my brain's doing, or I want to push them into traffic.
Yeah, I have a very hard time with like auditory sounds, like loud stuff, annoying stuff. Like once I hear it, it's the only thing I can hear.
I was pretty overwhelmed. I was surprised. I took that week off for the week of Christmas, between Christmas and New Year's. And when I came back to the office, I was like instantly, as soon as people arrived, I was like, it is so loud in here. Yes. What is going on?
That's
my apartment is so much quieter.
Post-COVID, Like, because, for a while we were only there one day a week and like nobody was there. So it was quiet. Like you'd be there and it was silent the whole day.
It was.
And then everybody started coming back and you're like, wow.
Which was real bad for my intrusive sleep, to be honest.
Yes. That definitely put a damper on that. But it is hard. Like, cause it just by nature of people being there, it's noisier.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have a very hard time with, that's why, like earbuds are very crucial for me, or like
earplugs.
loops. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Like I really, same thing like when I'm flying, I can't really listen to music or anything because the plane's so loud and then I just wind up like so burned out by the time I'm done traveling because it's just been so noisy all day.
Especially on a short flight. On like international flights, I have no problem sleeping eventually. Mm-hmm. But it does take me a while to come off being kind of hyper.
Yes.
When I get on the plane.
And then I'm
also like on a swivel when I travel.
Yes.
I have a story about Patrick and the train that I'll tell you off here because it's irrelevant. But I told him like he just needs a little bit of my travel anxiety.
just a smidge.
Because I'm like there's just no chance. I missed a train once because I forgot how clocks worked. Basically, I didn't read a clock correctly.
I don't know that I've ever missed.
I had to take the train from Stony Brook campus to Penn Station and then get my Amtrak up north.
Oh yeah, and that's a nightmare.
It was like figuring out when my train from campus would arrive in Penn Station because there was like 2 options that would have gotten me there.
Yep.
But I somehow chose the third option, which would not have gotten me there in time.
Having navigated the interchange between Amtrak and the Long Island Railroad before, no thank you, ever. Especially not at rush hour like I did with luggage.
Yeah.
Hard pass.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't know that I've ever, like, because of my own actions, missed something. Like a flight or a train.
I did miss a flight when I lived in Miami because I forgot I had the wrong date. I went the day after my flight and the lady at the desk was like, this flight was yesterday.
She's
and
like, dumb.
I started crying and she was like, it's okay, we can get you there. And I was like,
there's other flights.
Oh my God. I was, fuck Miami. I'm sorry if any of our listeners are in Miami, but it's not for me.
Yeah, no, same.
That was a rough time of my life when I lived down there.
I went one time for a few days and I was like, I don't love this. I'm not loving it.
Yeah. No, it's yeah. But that's it. That's all we got.
Yeah, so we will talk to you next week.
Yeah, I don't know what our topic will be yet.
We don't. We have no idea what our topic will be next week. At some point, I mean, we will be revisiting hormones at some point, doing a couple more episodes on that. So time will tell. Yeah. We'll see.
And as usual, if you have any ideas, use the form on our website or shoot us an email.
Yep.
And for topics, and we'll look into it. See if there's enough out there to make a whole episode on it.
Yeah. Or worst case scenario, we'll save it for maternity leave time and we'll do a short, or we do a short episode about it, which is also an option. So let us know what you want to hear, and we will talk to you next week.
Yeah.
Remember to be kind to yourself because stims happen, and be aware, and don't
Garrett's pregnant,
pick at your skin, and somebody bring me bagels.
Because the bar is ankle high.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be here next Thursday with a brand new episode to delight your brain juices. In the meantime, the best way to support us is to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast streaming platform. You can keep up with us during the week on Instagram and Facebook at The Bar is Ankle High, and on Twitter at Ankle High Pod. If you want even more ankle high hot takes in your life and have a few dollars to spare, consider joining our Patreon at patreon.com/thebarisAnkleHigh. We post bonus episodes there full of our karaoke attempts, Am I the Asshole discussions, and wondering how we even managed to survive this long. Patreon subscribers also get exclusive access to our secret Patreon-only Facebook group and get added to our close friends list on Instagram. Until next week, remember to be kind to yourself because the bar is ankle high.